What's going on, everyone? Today we are taking a look at the SVS Prime Wireless Pro speakers. Before we jump into this review, I just want to say I've been a longtime supporter of SVS products. I've owned their Prime Towers, two PB1000 subwoofers, and now currently using two PB16 Ultra subwoofers in my home theater setup. I've always wanted their original Prime Wireless speakers, but could never pull the trigger as I've seen many people not happy with their app and different issues it had. But once I saw they made a better upgraded version, I just knew I had to pick up a pair and finally check them out for myself. So coming back to these speakers here, everyone has heard of Sonos, but this is Sonos on a whole other level. While Sonos is good for the everyday listener, this is created with the more serious listener in mind. From the 24-bit, 192 kHz built-in DAC, built-in Wi-Fi, and a ton of different ways to connect, this has just about anything you could ever need to make the perfect 2.0 or 2.1 system. These are by no means cheap speakers. So while I review most speakers based off first impressions, I wanted to take the time to use and listen to these a little more before I put together a review. So far, I've owned these for a little over 2 months now, and these are definitely great speakers. I do have a few small issues with them that I'll go over in this video, but those things aside, these are hands down some of the best speakers I've ever used on my computer and honestly have made me want to listen to music a whole lot more. These weren't exactly made to be used as computer speakers, but this is where they would get the most use, so this is where I decided to keep them. So taking a look at the speakers themselves, I have their gloss black model, which like any other piano black speaker is a large fingerprint magnet, but when they're clean, it's a very nice and elegant look. So cleaning them often or simply not touching them at all is a sacrifice I'm usually willing to make. What's cool is these speakers only require one power cable, and that's because the amplifier and all the electronics are in this speaker, and then there's an output on back which connects to and powers the other speaker. My old studio monitors I use here needed one power cable each, so being able to free up an extra outlet and have one less wire to run was definitely a nice bonus for me. Alright, so first off, let's jump into some of the basic specs. These speakers have 5.25-inch drivers, 1-inch tweeters, and are 100 RMS each. Not 100 RMS for the pair, but 100 RMS each to make a total of 200 watts. This is an insane amount of power to be packed into these small cabinets, but this really lets them go to very high volumes and be able to do it with little to no distortion. The entire time it stayed very clean and pure, so SVS did a great job at tuning these and making 100% not just the highest volume, but a volume that the speakers can go up to without compromising audio quality. The other main feature of these speakers is they have built-in network capabilities. So you can connect your streaming apps to this speaker, and once they're set up, you can stream any of your music directly to the speaker without needing a computer or any devices. It's all saved and done inside the speaker itself. Coming around back of the main speaker, you have two Ethernet ports, a sub-out, RCA ports, a 3.5mm input, an optical port, and an HDMI ARC port. Looking at the front, you have a nice LED screen here that shows you a few different things like volume, song title, and what source you're on. Then below that, you have 6 preset buttons, and with these, you can program your favorite playlists or albums from several different streaming applications. Alright, so once you download and get these speakers set up in the DTS Play-Fi app, this is what you'll see. These are all the different apps that can be streamed to this speaker and utilize the preset buttons. Now, you don't have to come into this app if you don't want to, like with Spotify. You can simply click on the icon at the bottom, and since these are network connected speakers, they would pop up as one of the options you can stream to. Once you click on this, it'll redirect the audio to your speakers and work independently on its own. You can literally shut off your phone and it'll continue to play and work on this speaker. So as I said earlier, there are 6 different preset buttons on the front, and to program these, you simply start playing the playlist you want to program. Hold down the preset button, and just like that, your playlists are now programmed onto that preset. The next time you want to hear this playlist, you just press that button, and on its own, with no other inputs or devices, your speakers will automatically start playing it. This is very cool and handy, and even beats asking Google, as this is just a lot easier. One thing I learned is that if you set your playlist to shuffle first, then program the preset, it'll actually save the shuffle setting as well. This is very cool, as this allows you to mix it up instead of starting from track 1 every single time you push the button, which I think would get boring and tedious very quickly. Alright, so moving on to the most important here, which is how do they actually sound? Despite being the small speakers they are, these actually sound a lot larger and closer to what you would expect from a tower speaker. The soundstage and stereo separation is also very well done, and over the course of these 2 months, I truly feel they have renewed my enjoyment for music at my desk. Everything is very well equalized, and while I'm not a sound engineer to go really in depth with things, I can say I'm 100% happy with the sound I hear. I'm not a fan of bright speakers, so I'm glad these put out a softer sound that I much prefer. When it comes to bass, these are actually quite surprising as well. These are only 5.25-inch drivers, but these put out a whole lot more bass than you would normally expect from speakers this size. For most people, this would likely be more than enough bass, but for people like me who are used to having larger subs in their home theater setups, you would probably want to pair this with a subwoofer as well. I actually have a SuperCube 1000 subwoofer I had under my desk for many years, and that sub paired with these speakers have given me the perfect 2.1 system that I am completely happy with. Even my wife, who could care less about sound quality or new speakers, even commented that they sounded really good, which is surprising because half the time I spend thousands of dollars on an upgrade and she just says she can't hear the difference. So to me, hearing this from her really further emphasizes how great these speakers actually sound. So while I do love most things about these speakers, there are a few things that I think they could improve. First, and probably the biggest one for me, is there is not a track forward or track back button on these speakers. I forgot to mention this speaker actually includes a remote, which works great, but even with the remote, there's no way to change tracks there either. This to me seems really strange, especially when you consider this is a network speaker that's supposed to do everything all in its own. But if you want to change tracks, well, too bad, because you got to use voice commands or your phone to do that instead. My only way to sort of work around this was to set my playlist to shuffle. This way, every time I press the playlist button, it'll basically skip the song and go to another random song. But besides shuffle, there's no way to go forward or back within your playlist. This is my only major con I have with these speakers, and while I do have two more, these are more improvements that I think could have been made and not really actual problems. So first is, while these speakers do have a USB port on back, it is not actually usable and is only there for service purposes. This to me seems like a huge waste, as it would have been a lot better if we could use this to play media directly on the speaker. A second thing I would have liked is if we could use this USB port to connect the speakers directly to a computer. After all, they do have a built-in high-resolution DAC, so it seems like a missed opportunity to not let us connect directly to it. Lastly, I do wish they included a way to add your own EQ into these speakers. SVS has subwoofers which have Pro in the name as well, and with these, the Pro part meant that they added an internal DSP. So when I saw these were called Prime Wireless Pro, I assumed these were getting the internal DSP as well, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Although I am happy with the sound, I'm someone that likes to tinker and tune things further to my likings, so I am hoping this is something added in an update. All of these things aside, I am still very happy with these speakers. If you're considering getting an expensive soundbar, definitely don't do that and get these instead. There is no way a soundbar is going to put out the bass, soundstage, or stereo separation that these have. SVS believes in all of their products so much that they even include a free 45-day return period. So really, if you're on the fence about getting these, there's no reason to not order them and just try them out. Worst case scenario, they aren't for you and you can just send them back. But I think after you hear these, it's very unlikely you'll actually do that. Alright, well, that about wraps up this video. As usual, if you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll see you all next time.